Hello and a warm welcome to the film review here on BBC News, and taking us through this week's cinema releases as ever, it's Mark Kermode, and all of human life is here.
We have a very interesting week. We have The Many Saints of Newark, in which Dev Patel plays Gawain, and Gagarin, in which a young man struggles to save the home he lives in from demolition.
So Many Saints of Newark.
Yes.
So this is the sort of small screen comes to the big screen in a sense, in that it is the prequel to The Sopranos, as you
Exactly that. So Michael Gandolfini, son of James, plays the young Tony Soprano. The setting is the 60s, with the Newark riots of 67 being a big part of the plot. And the story essentially finds young Tony falling under the influence of Uncle Dickie Moltisanti, whose surname, of course, means many saints. Here's a clip. So you have to ask yourself two questions with a film like this. Firstly, does it work for the fans? And secondly, does it work as a standalone movie? Now, were you a big Sopranos fan?
Never seen it, I'm afraid.
Okay, so...
I know I should have done, because everyone says it's the greatest TV show ever made.
Yeah, well, the greatest TV show ever made is The Wire. But
or the film review on the BBC News channel.
Thank you very much. In the case of this, so I'm not a Sopranos aficionado, so I'm watching this as a standalone movie. And I have to say that as a standalone movie, it feels very much like it's spending a lot of time getting a lot of pieces in place for stuff which is going to happen later on. It feels very much like an Origins film, in which, weirdly enough, the origin is actually slightly to the side of what you expect it to be. And also it feels weirdly like an appendage to the Scorsese cinematic universe. It kind of feels like a weird appendage to Martin Scorsese's films. And this is what happens when you take something and you put it into the cinema. Does it stand up on its own right? I mean, I would say, for example, Fire Walk With Me, which is the Twin Peaks prequel. Even if you've never seen Twin Peaks, that is a brilliant horror movie. It is a terrifying horror movie, even if you've never seen Twin Peaks. I think in the case of El Camino, which was the sort of spin-off from Breaking Bad, it came at the end of Breaking Bad, but it was on streaming services. It kind of made sense, but it was an appendage. I think in the case of this, it has got a battle to find its place in the cinema. I think its primary audience will be people who love the series, and I'm sure people who know and love the series will get much more out of it than I did. But that just makes me wonder why it's in the cinema, because I suspect that its primary audience actually will be an at-home audience. It's fine, it's perfectly well made, it has some nice performances, but it does feel a little bit Scorsese light. I think it needs to be more cinematic. And again, I'd say Fire Walk With Me is a near perfect movie, even if you've never seen Twin Peaks. Okay.
It's fine. They're not going to put that on the billboards, I don't think.
Yeah, you know.
The Green Knight.
Yeah.
Now, this is based on the 14th, although I think you're going to dispute this, 14th century poem, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
I want to be very clear. I'm not disputing this. I got in touch with Simon Armitage, the poet laureate, and he said, well, 14th, maybe early 15th.
You are a name
for
dropper.
Late medieval.
Such a name dropper.
So, anyway, this is a retelling of, my old friend Simon. This is a retelling of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Dev Patel is Gawain, not Sir, who is the wastrel who very, very early on lops the head off the Green Knight, but then binds himself to a deal whereby a year later he must make a pilgrimage to the Green Knight's chapel to receive a similar blow in return. So it's a quest movie. It's directed by David Lowery. You can see this in cinemas, or you can see it on streaming. And here is my suggestion. Go and see it in cinemas, because this is such a cinematic movie. It looks fantastic. It has a real earthy feel to it, but it's also kind of strange and spiritual and dreamy and sensuous. It's got a fantastic score by Daniel Hart. Dev Patel is the best he's ever been. I mean, I think Dev Patel can do anything. He was so great in Personal History of David Copperfield, but I think this really marks him as one of the finest, actors of his generation. And this is faithful to the text, but it also takes many adventurous leaps, and it looks like something that was made with love in its heart. It looks like something that was made by somebody who really did this as a passion project. And I've seen it a couple of times now, and I want to go straight back and watch it again. There is so much in it that is strange and adventurous and weird and really rather wonderful. One of my favourite films of the year. See it in a cinema, see it on a big screen.
High praise. Gagarin. Now, this was shot on a housing project in Paris just before it was demolished.
Yeah, so Cité Gagarin, which is just on the outskirts of Paris, and The story centres on a teenager called Yuri, who's obviously named after Yuri Gagarin.
Yes.
And
Just to explain to people who don't know, the famous Russian cosmonauts,
yes, of whom we see footage at the very beginning. And the estate is going to be demolished, but Yuri wants to save it. And he wants to save it at first by attempting to fix its many problems. Here's a clip.
Je peux te parler 2 secondes? Vas-y, parle-moi. Les 30 euros. Tu veux me facturer, c'est ça? On se connaît depuis tout petit, tu me factures pour 30 euros. Tu me fais mal à la tête, c'est pas 30 euros. C'est sérieux, toi?
Tu vas faire quoi avec les 30 euros en fait?
Bah, c'est pour réparer la cité, c'est pour nous en plus.
Tu vas rien réparer du tout avec les 30 euros.
Mais c'est un début.
Il y a plus de 30 euros, j'ai acheté des nouvelles paires là.
Faut garder espoir, les mecs. Gagarin forever.
Eh Yuri, faut t'y faire, hein. Ils vont la détruire la cité. Hein. Tu peux rien faire, il n'y a plus de Gagarin forever.
Arrête, moi je partirai pas.
Mais
Arrête
gros,
ça, c'est pas la bonne mentalité.
Il a raison, on va aller où si on nous vient?
Je sais pas, hein. Dans un petit loft en plein Paname.
Vas-y, laisse tomber, Yuri, c'est trop tard de toute façon.
Moi, on va aller en Espagne. Vas-y, viens, il y a de la place dans la voiture.
Allez, cassez-vous les gars.
Vous êtes sérieux là?
On est sérieux.
Here's what's great about this. It has its feet on the ground and its head in the stars. He retreats into the estate as it turns out that it is clearly going to be demolished. And he starts to turn his apartment into almost like a recreation of a space capsule. And it then enters these flights of fancy in which he's inside a building, but he's imagining that he's in a spaceship. And the music, again, is a very big part of it. It literally goes from the streets to the stars because they have tracks by the streets, and then they have this really amazing sort of ethereal space music. And it sounds like it shouldn't work at all. It sounds like it absolutely shouldn't work, but I loved it. I thought it was really good. Great performances. And the fact that
on
it's
BBC
shot
One, we
in
now join
the
the
authentic
BBC's news
location,
teams.
I mean, the use of location stuff in it is really, really good. And it's about his interior journey and about him imagining this world that he wants to be part of, this out of this world that he wants to be part of. I think it's a really good example of a film that, as I said, you think, okay, there's no way that should work. And then you watch it and you go, okay, yeah, it's just so well done. It's like a piece of poetry or a piece of music. And so, for me, this is kind of in a similar vein as The Green Knight. They're very, very different films, but they're both ambitious, imaginative, and they're not afraid to tell a slightly different story.
Piece of poetry, but not 14th century poetry.
Or 15th century.
Or 15th century.
Let's ask Simon Armitage. Yeah, I'll get him on the phone afterwards.
Best out is Rose Plays Julie, which we talked about last week.
Yeah, I mean, I want people to go and see it. This is a superb thriller from...
You've seen it 3 times, haven't you?
I have, and I still don't think I've got all the nuances of it. Christine Malloy and Joe Lawler, and, a young woman adopts another identity in order to track down her birth parents, but it's a mystery and it's a psychodrama and it's such a strange, evocative film. They made a film called Helen, which is just wonderful. I think they're great filmmakers, and I think this is a really interesting film, and again deserves to be seen on a big screen.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that one. And Reissue.
Yeah, well, Denis Villeneuve's Dune is coming up, the adaptation of the unfilmable novel. This is the David Lynch 1984 Dune.
This was a turkey, wasn't it? Or a commercial turkey?
It was a bomb. It certainly didn't do... I mean, the thing is, it's an unfilmable novel. Here's the thing I'd say about it. It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, it really genuinely doesn't. But there are things in it that are so David Lynchy and so strange and, Sting coming out of the showers wearing this pair of winged underpants. And you just think, I wonder whether the Denis Villeneuve version will have anything to match that in it. It is all over the place, and it is if you've read the book, it's annoying because it's not the book, and if you haven't read the book, it makes no sense at all. But it does have things in it that you think, well, only David Lynch would put that in a film.
Is this one of these films that's so bad it's sort of quite good?
It's one of those films that is so misguided, it's kind of fascinating. I mean, Lynch didn't have final cut, but I mean, originally Jodorowsky was going to do it 14 hours long with Salvador Dali in one of the lead roles, but Salvador Dali wanted $100,000 an hour.
Wow. Because, of course, Blue Velvet he did, which was an absolute classic.
Yes, and the argument is that Dune is basically the counterpoint to Blue Velvet. It's like you do this, and then you get to do that. And Blue Velvet is, of course, the culmination of everything that Lynch was trying to do. And I should also say, in the interest of honesty, when I first saw Blue Velvet, I was so startled by it that I walked out because it was so overwhelming. I actually couldn't bear being in the screening room with it. And I went back in and saw it again, and I love it. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. But when I saw Dune, I mean, part of me thought, is this going to start making any sense? And I watched it again just recently. It was like, yeah, no sense at all, none at all.
Sometimes it doesn't matter. You always make perfect sense, of course. Mark, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Well, that's it for this week's film releases. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.